Hi everyone, my name is Davis Polito, and today I'll be talking about volumes in TouchDesigner. Volumes, I guess actually first a little bit about me. I'm an electronic instrument design researcher. I work at Princeton. I work with the laptop orchestra out there, designing VSTs and plugins and building a lot of crazy, mostly Max patches, sorry about that, for the past couple of years. And this is more or less my first project in TouchDesigner. Volumes is a immersive audiovisual installation for the drum kit. So it features frequency on the y-axis and volume on the x-axis. We invite out drummers to come in and play the installation and improvise a composition reacting to the visuals that they're seeing. This was originally designed by Ezra Mash. There were about 6 iterations until I was involved. And then now we've done 2 new iterations in the past year. Yeah, so this is a video of Gregory McDonald playing the installation in Philly a few years ago, before I was involved. Sorry for the poor quality in that video. So how did I come in contact with Ezra? I emailed him, and we had coffee, and then I didn't hear back from him for a year. Didn't ever think anything was to happen there, but turns out he had a project that he wanted us to work on together. So he sent me his original project, which was using these LED controllers and like an Intech DMX controller. And this was his basic wiring diagram. So he would build out these lights that he ended up sending me. Hand wired, hand built, where each of these connects to one of those LED controllers. So I was able to get some light going, simple little circle ramp. So what's going on here? My computer's broken, so most of all of the original Volumes installations were working only with white light. That's basically because of cost and number of addresses. Doing anything with RGB was just too expensive for Ezra to pull off, and so he just went with white light, and it became an aesthetic choice. There were 6 iterations before I was involved. His biggest one had 176 hand-built lights that he had to wire up and string from the ceiling by himself. And he did the DMX and Max MSP, which I thought was insane. That's what it looks like. Individual addresses for each thing, if statements on the volume to get the effect of it expanding, and I was definitely not going to do that. So what we came up with was this project with the Princeton Laptop Orchestra called Extruded Curves, which maintained some of the limitations of the white light, and further limited us by doing a 2-dimensional grid. I was definitely not prepared to do anything in 3 dimensions. This was the mock-up for what we were going to do, and you can see here, I think it says 11 fixtures, 72 lights each, so already probably 10x the number of addresses he's ever used, and definitely way more than I had ever considered in DMX. And then here's a video of that. So what's going on there and how did we get there? This was the final patch. It's beautiful. So first we had to learn TouchDesigner. I had never opened up TouchDesigner before this, and did not really know what I was getting into. How did I do that? David Braun. If you've ever watched any of his videos, he's incredible. He had recently started his PhD at Princeton, and I just emailed him And I said, hey, come talk to Plork. You seem like someone that would be interested in that. I know you went to Stanford, blah, 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 blah. And then maybe a couple months later, when I actually started working on this project, I was like, what's a copy stop? How do I figure out what a copy stop is? I was trying to figure that out, and he helped me out. And he also showed me his matrix chop. So this sort of powered the whole installation. It allows you to essentially sample three-dimensional space down into a UV unwrapped grid. So we took that, yes, I did it. And so we took this and basically sampled tops with these coordinates. And so you could literally put a diamond on the screen just with a simple top. And this was another part of the project of building our own little pixel controller. We didn't want to buy another pixel controller because we're cheap. And I also really enjoy writing embedded code. So I was really happy to do this. We basically just saw every DMX address as sending 3 SPI pixel messages, and we're able to turn 512 addresses into 512 lights. Also, another fun feature is we sent the data over TRS cables. Because we are a laptop orchestra, we can reuse TRS cables. But what about the drums? What's going on with the drums? Those weird mesh heads, all those sampled sounds. So previously the installations were just contact mics, and the cymbals are still contact mics because there's not really a sensor you can use for cymbals. But we expanded the drums to use this sensory percussion hybrid software. It is basically a timbre mapping DAW for drums. You use these little sensors, which have magnets in them. So they're a Hall effect sensor. They're measuring magnetic current. And the advantage that this gives you over a contact mic is that it really reduces crosstalk. You're just not going to get as much vibration that the contact mics will pick up. So basically, you just play a bunch of center hits, play a bunch of edge hits, rim hits, all the things that you can do to a drum and train it. And then it runs some level of regression on that and figures out what you're playing as you're playing it. And then from this, you can get a bunch of information like speed, velocity, and those timbres moving from like a center to an edge. And then in the software, you can even map those to pitch, delays, any sort of typical audio effect. And then you can also wrap it in MIDI and send it to TouchDesigner. And so that's what's going on here. And I'm going to show a little demo. I got to fix my audio. Yeah, and so that's a really simple interaction that we built. Basically controlling the speed with the speed. And this also had a whole feature of having the Plork performers behind it, doing this very ambient thing. It was really beautiful. You can find it online. And that was also part of the concert I showed earlier. So I can either field questions or push on to what we did in Houston or Austin, and this is where we went 3D and incorporated pops. So, all right, so I'll push on. So this could be a talk in and of itself. This project was really crazy. We really changed the whole thing that we were doing with sensory percussion. We invited out musicians to write their own compositions in the software, and I really didn't know what that would look like, but it looked really crazy. I'm not going to go into working with that software and figuring out all the OSC and all the things that you could do with it, but basically these are some videos from it, and then I'll talk more about like the actual project. I'm going to go over to Instagram for my other favorite video. Oh, of course.
I want to welcome to the kit Mr. Nate Smith. All right, without further ado.
So that was the iteration that we did in Austin. I think this is probably just another random video. Here we go. So that first one, I really had no idea what I was doing. Sops, chops, just using someone else's code that they showed me how to use. But we were able to accomplish a lot, and I was really excited. This time around, I was doing a lot more on my own, and definitely didn't want to do the MIDI thing because this whole compositional software, there was no way to do it in MIDI. So I figured out how to use DATs, OSC, a bunch of Python scripting, color. We got color, which was sick. 3,400 pixels and pops. So one thing that I'll just kind of glance over is basically generated the animation framework from the OSC messages received. So I was able to format them in their software so that they would create this sort of replicator structure for things like notes and other sort of different samples going on. But most importantly, it was pops. So pops is really what powered this whole installation. They're these sort of GPU accelerated SOPs. They have a bunch of primitive-based attributes and kind of allow you to do, for me, it feels like object-oriented programming on a GPU, assign all these variables to any individual point, and create patterns with that. And this is more or less the pop that powered the whole thing. It's this grid pop that allows you to create a grid of points, triangles, lines, anything you want. And then I added this, but I think this actually might be natively in the grid now, which is just like sort of index coordinates, so I would know what row or column you are in for an individual pixel. And then so here's what the like pop 2 looks like, where you actually get the pop to dat, where you actually get like the index of a pixel, its position in the grid, and then I added the index coordinate idea, which allowed me to do that sort of like step through thing that you saw in the first video from this. So I'm going to show a quick demo of pretty much how I used the grid and field, which is basically a 3D sine distance function, which allows you to do things like immediately put a circle into a grid. And I'm sorry, I don't have a nice display of this. I really have no idea what I'm doing. So they have a bunch of, that's the lookup texture. Okay, so here we go. Here's our field. So first thing we do here is instantiate a grid, and then we create a field. The field can be all sorts of things: sphere, parabola, torus, but it's not torusing right, probably because the radius isn't low enough. Yeah. So then you use the field and you attach it to some sort of attribute. So in this case, gosh, I'm really missing the mic the whole time. In this case, I attached it to the weight and then use that weight to look up in a texture. That's just a simple ramp, and was able to get this effect, which is basically what we did for the volumes installation in Austin. We created these things and we mapped it to color, mapped volume and amplitude to color, and just sent it out from the center, recreating what his original installation did. That's more or less everything there. And here are a few. This is the musicians that played on Extruded Curves. This is Evan Chapman, Gladstone Deluxe, and my drum teacher, Mark Eichenberger. And these are the musicians that played in Austin. You've Nate Smith, Mike Gonzalez, Ben Sloan, Greg Fox, Val Janti, and Brandon Temple. This is my boss, Jeff Snyder. Stream his album Loom on Spotify. This is my other boss, Dan Truman, crazy classical musician. And then this is me again. So, do we have time for questions? We need to move on. Question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very interested in expanding this beyond the drum kit. I'm really excited for some of the work I'm doing with my partner who's a dancer, and so we'll be incorporating lights and some motion tracking, and hopefully some projection mapping, but we'll see if I get there. But yeah, definitely very interested in working with other artists and working with other instruments. Really anything audio-reactive really excites me. Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. Cost. If you get back to me, I can give you the exact costs. I can email it to you. But I think so. We did 11 of these. I think the aluminum for 11 of them, just like that's what these things are actually on, is aluminum. It was like maybe $800. I think and again, like this is 11 of them, so like that's pretty good for 11, 12-foot long aluminum things that we had to end up cutting. And then the diffusion is like maybe somewhere around that as well. ESP32 is like $20, and I plan on posting the code from the ESP32 sometime soon. Follow me on GitHub. Any DMX controller, a couple $100. So I mean, like to do one of these, I would put it around $1,000, I'd imagine. Maybe less, maybe more. I have no idea though, but I will get back to you if you email me. Yeah. Yeah, so the Princeton Laptop Orchestra is actually like the first academic laptop ensemble. It started out as a way to teach students how to do music programming languages like Max and SP. And has kind of evolved into this sort of all experimental electronic things. So we're not always just coding things. We're not always at our laptops. We do all sorts of weird instrument design and weird things that bridge on performance art. And yeah, that's more or less it. Yeah. We also have like a professional version it's called Sideband because you can't really tour with students. And sometimes we do tours, which is fun. Overall experience with Pops was great. I don't know why they say it's not production ready. I think it is. I'm with you. It took me like a couple months to really understand it, and like honestly, within those couple months where I didn't understand it, it crashed more than anything. And then at some point, it just stopped crashing. So I don't know if I understood it better, or my computer got really used to it, but it stopped crashing, and I haven't had it crash in a couple months. So yeah, I say ship it. All right, thank you all so much.